ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण परिष्ठाय स्वामी ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण परिष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्ण। Thank you all so much on this wonderful Saturday of Purushottam Adhik Mas. We are in a very, very special period where whatever devotional activities we do, we get very, very special benefit. Every year we celebrate the month of Damodar, the month of Kartik. It is said the month of Purushottam gives many, many times more benefit for spiritual activities than even the month of Kartik. So, this is very, very special. And of course, needless to say, if every day of Adhik Maas is so special, then what to speak of the Ekadashis. So, whatever way we can take benefit of this special month by doing extra service, extra austerity, pleasing the Vaishnavas, serving them, or even day-to-day simple activities of sadhana, hearing together, chanting together, opportunities like what we have today, where sincere aspirants, faithful people are coming together, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. That is going to give us so much more benefit than what would have normally accrued. So we are very grateful to the Lord for this opportunity. We are continuing our discussion on the Srimad Bhagavat. We are starting today the 13th chapter of the 9th canto. In the last three chapters, we briefly discussed the great pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. Very, very, very extraordinary character. Lord Ramachandra as Maryada Purushottam, the Supreme Lord has set such a standard of perfect behavior in every possible role, whether as a son, whether as a husband, whether as a king, whether as a friend. even as an enemy. He has set the benchmark that nobody can pass. He has set for us the highest standards. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Dharma is that which is given directly by the Lord, and when the same Lord himself does a direct demo of dharma, showing how he is so tolerant, humble, compassionate, despite the most trying circumstances. Those kind of super excellent examples which the Lord sets continues to guide humanity for eons and eons and otherwise, the tendency of conditioned living entities is always to, even religion and religious principles, to always manipulate for personal benefit. Isn't it? We see this even sometimes we do, or even in the society of devotees, sometimes the strong tendency is there. We use spiritual instructions, we use philosophy only as a justification for purposes which suit our material interest and neglect whatever else. I just recollected one beautiful story I'll quickly narrate before we move on to the topic of today. Once one Brahmana, it's an ancient story. One Brahmana was there, and there was a very old cow which was nearby, and that old cow was creating a bit of a ruckus. So this Brahmana, he was externally very knowledgeable, but not very spiritually advanced. And when he saw that particular cow, old cow, creating a bit of a disturbance, moving around in the field, doing this, that, he took a small piece of stone and he just threw at her to shoo her. That piece of stone flew through the air with great speed and landed directly on the head of that old cow. And as a result of being struck by that piece of stone, that poor old cow died there immediately. Much to the shock of the Brahman. The Brahman actually had no intention of killing the cow. He was just trying to kind of scare her off. But sometimes things like this happen. You want to do one thing, you're not careful, you end up doing a big mistake. Anyway, so this mistake happened and he was shocked. And the personified sin of Gau Hatya, which is a very, very prominent sin, came to the Brahmana. He said, Brahman, now I am going to enter your body because you have committed Gau Hatya, this sin. I am representing this sin, I am going to enter your body. Brahmana said, no, 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 you cannot enter my body. Why? You committed this sin. No. Don't you know Shastra? He started using his intelligence over time. Don't you know Shastra? Shastra says, what does Shastra say? That Lord Indra resides on the palm of one's hand. So, that means the stone was not thrown by me, the stone was thrown by Indradev. The Brahman is arguing. So, he's shifting blame or responsibility from himself to Indradev. You don't know Shastra? And quoted some hymns from the Vedas. Indra resides in the palms of the hands. Oh, so you go to Indra. Indra has to settle the issue of the sin, not my problem. So the personified sin of Gauhatya went to Indradev and said, I'm just coming from this Brahmana. He said, he deferred the case to you, saying you are responsible. So I now want to occupy your body. You have to deal with this sin. So is it? Who said this? And he explained the whole story. So Indradev said this. Can you wait here for 2 minutes? I'll just be back. Indra disguised himself as a very opulent man, like a big businessman, and he went to the house in that disguised form in the house of that Brahmana. So, Brahmana, you are so pious, you look so nice, you look so effulgent. Brahmana, seeing this very opulent personality, showed him due respect. And Indra, in the form of this rich merchant, said, "Oh, such a nice garden you have here." He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Such beautiful flowers and trees. Who did this? Who helped you make all this?" Ah, I did it. I did. I have sown the plants. I have watered them. I have done this. I have this beautiful well here. I dug with my own hands. And what about this beautiful cottage that you have constructed? Oh, that also. My engineering, my effort, everything. Really, you did it. Yes, I did it with these hands. I have done all these things. The Brahman said. As soon as he said that, huh, Indra transformed from the businessman back to Indra, and he called the sin personified. And he said, "You saw this cheater? When he suited him, when he performed sin, he said the sin is by Indra. But for all the things that he did with the same hands, he is claiming all credit for himself. That time he didn't say Indra did this." So he instructed the sin, "Go and grab this Brahman." And the sin went and grabbed him. So this is the cheating mentality. This is the conditioned mentality of living entities. We are always trying to use religion. Nowadays, so much fighting politics in the name of religion. Why? Because the leaders of religion are not interested in the real goal of religion. They're interested in using and manipulating religion and religious teachings for control, for exploitation, for war, for conflict, for their personal enjoyment. Lord Ramachandra created that perfect example despite being the most powerful person, despite being the most beautiful person, despite being the most famous person, despite being the most intelligent person. Shada Ishwarya Sampurna, full of six opulences, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, sometimes when we are weak, when we are following the rule of law, it is not very surprising because we may be following out of fear. Most people follow religion not out of love of God. Most people follow religion because they are fearful. What will happen to me? What will society say? Will I get punished by a higher power? Fear is the most common motivation. Then is duty. Sorry, then is desire that I'll get something good if I follow my dharmic duties. Then is duty, and then finally is love. Ramchandra was not motivated by anything. Any of these considerations. Ramchandra was simply motivated by the desire to set the perfect example for the welfare of all living. Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna says, and this applies to Lord Ramchandra also, Name kartavya trishu lokeshu. I do not have any duty because I am not material. I don't take a material body. I have no material duty to perform in the entire three worlds. But even then, when I come into this world, taking an incarnation, even though ajopisan avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropisan, even though I'm the Lord of all living entities, even though I take a spiritual body, even then I still perform my prescribed duties in that role that I have taken. Why? Just to set a good example for others. Because if I do not set the right example, then people will follow my bad example because I'm the Lord. And it will bring ruination on everybody. So Lord Ramchandra is not following dharma because if he follows adharma, he will be punished. He is demonstrating the supreme example of perfect dharmic behavior to set that beacon, that lighthouse of that perfect example for all of us to remain inspired by his sacrifice, and inspired ultimately by his remaining composed, peaceful, and happy despite all situations, simply by virtue of following dharma. That's why there's this beautiful saying, right? Dharmo rakshati rakshitah. The duty of living entities is simply to execute their dharma. You know what our problem is? Even though we are trying to follow dharma, and of course there are two levels of dharma, there is Varnashram dharma and there is Bhagavad dharma. We should follow both. Eventually, when we are liberated, following Varnashram dharma, yes or no, is optional. But like what Krishna said, great devotees still prefer to follow just to set the right example. But Bhagavad dharma we never leave. The dharma of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, that is our eternal dharma. The Lord doesn't need to follow, but still follows, set the right inspiration, the right example for all of us. So these are the beautiful pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. He has shown that despite being all powerful, he chooses always to follow the path of dharma, and he remains happy following the path of dharma. For us, we become disturbed by the circumstances that destiny throws towards. Oh, why this happened? Oh, our heart is rebelling oftentimes against circumstances which come our way, which are not to our liking, even spiritually, which don't fit into our plan. Oh Krishna, why did you do like this? If you had given me this job, this wife, this salary, I would have done such nice service. You don't understand. I will tell you how to help me to become a good devotee. Ramchandra is setting the perfect example, no complaints. Tattena kampam susumikshamano hunjanamivatmakrutam vipakam. Whatever is coming by the perfect arrangement of the Lord. My duty is to respond to every situation perfectly basis my dharma. Never be disturbed. Everything is going on by the Supreme Lord. Of course, in terms of duty, if you need to counteract certain situations, you must counteract it according to all means possible as per dharma. But internally, one should never lose one's composure. Internally, one doesn't become resentful. Internally, one is not complaining. The three cancers of the mind: compare, complain, criticize. One always should feel content and fulfilled simply by virtue of perfectly following her. Anyway, that's such a beautiful topic, a big topic. But essentially, what I wanted to emphasize is we are so grateful to Lord Ramchandra that he has set that perfect example. That even today, billions of years later, we are still singing and chanting the glories of Lord Ram. And within Ramayana, not just Ramchandra, but so many ideal characters: Bharat, Kaushalya, Dashrath, Hanuman, Ishan, Jatayu. So many. I'm just taking a few examples. Lakshman. What to speak of Sita, Urmila, and so many others. There's no shortage of very, very extraordinary personalities within Ramayana, each in their own situation, being the best. So it's not so much for us as living entities to try to be to change our, to always want to be, oh, why am I in this situation? Why not I am in that situation? Why I'm not like that? Why I'm not in his shoes? It's always about Krishna has put me in this situation. Let me do the best of it. Let me make the best of it. And seeing everything as Krishna's mercy and dealing with it with the right spiritual consciousness is the true path of auspiciousness for the sadhaka. for the living entity. As long as the living entity is continuously bickering, complaining, resenting, he is actually slowing down his own spiritual progress. He's not making the best use of the opportunity that the Lord is presenting to him. So this is a very important. Okay, anyway, enough said on this point. This particular chapter is very small, so no harm spending this good 20 minutes on what we discussed because it's a very, very important point. This particular chapter that we are going to discuss today is chapter 13. The chapter is entitled The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. Now, Maharaj Nimi is one of the sons of Ikshvaku. If you remember, we are talking about the broad picture of the 9th canto is discussions of Vaivasvat Manvantara and the descendants. So, Vaivasvat Manvantara means the sons of Vivaswan. The son of Vivaswan is Vaivasvat Manu. Vaivasvat Manu, his descendants. And Ikshvaku was mentioned as one of the prominent descendants of the Vaivasvat Manvantara, of Vaivasvat Manu. One of the other sons of King Ikshvaku is a great king known as Maharaj Nimi. So this particular chapter focuses on the descendants of Maharaj Nimi. And there are a few very prominent descendants of Maharaj Nimi, and they are briefly discussed. The rest of them are a list of names. So there's not a lot of discussion, but that line is described all the way with a long list of names and a few very, very prominent kings. Not to say that this long list of names is not a list of great souls. In fact, at the end of this chapter, Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj's entire lineage of all these kings are all self-realized souls. Can you imagine? Just look at the character of politicians today and what they will not do. Nonsense. Just to grab power and exploit people. And these are the Raja Rishis. Like Krishna also explains it. Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Abhyayam. Vivasvan Manave Praha. Vivasvan first gave this knowledge to Manu. Which Manu? Vaivasvat Manu. Whose descendants we are talking about. Krishna is referring to that dynasty only. Vivasvan Manave Praha. Manur Ikshvakave Abravit. And Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku. And one of the sons of Ikshvaku is Nimi. And after that, Manur Ikshvakave Abravit. After that, in the Raja Rishi tradition, Krishna says, this knowledge was passed down from Raja Rishi to Raja Rishi, which means all these kings, they gave down spiritual, they were all very, very highly enlightened. And this summary of all that we are discussing, the summarized part is there already in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yasvan Manave Paraha, Manur Ikshvakave Abravit. Evam Parampara Praptam, Imam Rajarshayo Vidu. And in this way, this transcendental science of Krishna consciousness was understood by the Raja Rishis and disseminated to people at large. Because when the king is Krishna conscious, when the leader is Krishna conscious, when the president, prime minister is Krishna conscious, and today's society, when the film stars are Krishna conscious, because they are the heroes. Whoever are the heroes and leaders of society, then people follow. Yadyata charati shreshtas tattva devetarvachara. Recently, just a few days ago, Suvendu Adhikari, who became the chief minister from BJP, of BJP party in Bengal, a couple of days ago, I think it was on the Ekadashi of Purushottam, he visited the ISKCON temple in Mayapur. He was chanting Gauranga Nityananda. He's from a family of devotees of Jagannath. He's very familiar with the with our Gaudiya line. So he was singing Gaudiya bhajans, worshipping the cow, offering arti to Radha Madhav, chanting Gaur Nitai, dancing Hare Krishna. When the people at large, when we dance, okay, people will just comment, okay, nice. The chief minister dances. When he chants, when he worships the cow, people say, yes, yad yad acharati tattadevi. These things make a huge impact. We may think this is just some show. I mean, he is a devotee as far as we know, in the sense that he has faith in Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for sure. But even though he may or may not be a great devotee, I do not know. But by virtue of the position that he is holding, just by his publicly displaying his devotion and the culture of chanting and the culture of worship and the culture of respect, he is offering respect to the sadhu, he is worshipping the cow. This makes such a huge impact for society. That's why it's so important for the kings to be spiritually very, very powerful. Yadyad acharati. Eventually, Krishna himself says, Imam Rajarshayo vidus sakalena mahata yogo nashta param tapa. Eventually, in due course of time, the tradition was broken of the Raja Rishis and the knowledge was lost. And that is why Krishna is telling Arjuna, I have come back to give this knowledge and reinstall this in its pure form by making you my instrument. यदा यदा धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम धर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहं परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. So this Raja Rishi descendants, which Krishna has mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, is also descendants of Nimi are also amongst these Raja Rishis. So let us hear about who these descendants are and some of the prominent ones. There are some interesting stories mentioned in this chapter. So it is said, the story begins with Nimi. Very interesting story. And Nimi himself, Nimi was a very advanced spiritual practitioner. It is said he was a self-realized soul. Son of Ikshvaku, self-realized soul. And he was the disciple of the great sage Vashishta Muni. Now, at one point, Maharaj Nimi wanted to perform a very elaborate yajna. So this is in past ages. So to please the Lord, they would perform very, very elaborate yajnas. Triteya Adhyayato Vishnum Tritayam Ijito Mathai. Especially in Trita Yuga, a lot of yajna performances. So, Maharaj Nimi wanted to perform a yajna and he went to his guru, the Raja Purohit, Vashishta Muni, you are my Purohit. Please help perform the yajna and accept the position of chief priest. But just before that, Vashishta Muni had received an invitation from Indradev. So he told Maharaj Nimi, Indra has booked my time earlier. I have already accepted the same post of being the main priest of the yajna by Lord Indra. So I shall soon come back. You just wait for me. Don't do the yajna yet. I will come back after performing Indra's yajna. And then I will perform your yajna. So even though it's not explicitly mentioned here, the point was that Vashishta Muni did not want to miss out on Indra's yajna. Even though technically he was the Raj Purohit of Maharaj Nimi. Actually, he should have given higher priority to Maharaj Nimi, but he gave priority to Indra. Why? If I do yajna for Indra, then I'll get better dakshina. But Maharaj Nimi didn't say anything. He was just quiet. He didn't argue, he didn't protest. He understood what was happening. But he didn't want to argue because he is Raj Purohit, like his guru. spiritual master, and he was a self-realized soul. So he didn't say anything. Vashishta wanted to collect remuneration from Indra also and then come back and do this yajna also and collect remuneration here also. So after Vashishta Muni went to perform Indra's sacrifice, Maharaj Nimi was a self-realized soul, started thinking, life is so short. If I wait, I don't know how long I have to wait for Vashishta to come back. So much time will be wasted. And this human form of life is very precious. So let me not wait. I know he wanted me to wait, but let me not wait because at the end of the day, we want to serve the Lord. And we are doing this yajna for the benefit of everybody. So let me do the yajna anyway. So he engaged other priests to do the yajna. Meanwhile, Vashishta Muni completed the yajna of Indra. He came back to earth, came back to Maharaj Nimi. And as soon as he came back, he realized, oh, Nimi, you have already performed the yajna. What is this? How did you do this? You disobeyed my direct order. I told you not to do the yajna. So I curse you. Huh? May the material body of Maharaj Nimi, who considers himself very learned, may it fall down immediately. Which means basically saying, may he die. Can you imagine? Huh? All he did was he performed a yajna in his absence. He lost his remuneration. For that, he cursed him that you should die immediately. Maharaj Nimi was not just an ordinary king, he is a self realized soul. He could see clearly what Vashishta was up to. He could see that Vashishta was wrongly cursing him for an offense he had not committed because he was not actually trying to disobey the instructions of Vashishta. He thought of a higher purpose, whereas actually Vashishta was the one who was attached to remuneration. So Maharaj Nimi counter cursed him for the sake of getting Dakshina from the king of heaven. You lost your religious intelligence rather than doing my yajna, you did his yajna, and now you are blaming me because you are wrongfully cursing me. I also curse you. Your body will also fall. This is what happens, disaster. This person says, I curse you, you will die. This other person says, you will die. Now both are going to die. Of course, Maharaj Nimi knew that Vashishta's curse will definitely come true, and Vashishta knew that his curse, Nimi's curse is also, because Nimi is a self-realized soul. His curse is also going to take effect. So both were thinking now how to manage their death. So both are going to die. So the Bhagavatam says, Shukdev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, Nimi was so expert in spiritual science, it is said he himself gave up his body willfully because he was a very advanced yoga practitioner. So in that yajna that was being performed, it is said Maharaj Nimi gave up his body and he instructed his subjects, his ministers or whoever, who took care of his body by preserving it in very fragrant substances. So the curse had to happen, but they wanted to make sure that the body is not perished because they all had a plan that we have to work out some way that Nimi can come back. Temporarily, he has to give up the body, but let's work around the curse somehow. So they were doing the yajna. As Nimi already left the body, so-called died. He didn't just fall down and die, but he himself left the body voluntarily. So the curse was fulfilled. The body was preserved, and his followers, his representatives started performing a very wonderful, very big yajna known as the Satra Yaga. Great sages and saints were performing yajnas to propitiate the devatas. Meanwhile, Vashishta also had to give up his body. Now, the Bhagavatam mentions Vashishta gave up his body because of the curse, but then he was reborn through another very interesting pastime. So this pastime is mentioned briefly. So I will mention here briefly also. This is also a very interesting pastime. This pastime is mentioned elsewhere in the Puranas of the birth of Vashishta. So the birth happened something like this. It is said once Mitra and Varuna were performing some sacrifices, performing some yajnas, some religious rituals. The Devatas, Mitra and Varuna. So at that time it is said the celestial nymph Apsara Urvashi happened to be come there and pass there. And Urvashi is, I don't know whether you are aware, the Bhagavatam mentions Urvashi was born from the Uru, which means the thighs of the Supreme Personality of God. Narayan Rishi. They gave birth. So that's another pastime. It's from the Bhagavatam only. I don't know whether you recollect. We have discussed that already. He was born from the thighs. Narayan Rishi, actually, at one time, Indra sent so many apsaras to disturb Narayan Rishi. Narayan Rishi is the Lord, Supreme Lord. Krishna and Arjuna are Narayan Rishi, the ones who stay at Badrikashram eternally. They were just laughing at Indra. What is this, ordinary damsels that he's sending to practice? And the Lord produced an apsara from his thigh. It was so beautiful. She was more beautiful than all the apsaras of Indra combined. Indra was shocked. And after producing this beautiful apsara, Narayan Rishi told Indra, you can keep her. This is our gift to you. Take this gift and go. They are not interested in all this. So she was like the number one top of the charts apsaras. Oh, extraordinarily beautiful. Extraordinarily beautiful. It is said just by seeing her, even though Matra and Varuna were performing rituals, they were so agitated in their mind by seeing her extraordinary beauty. That's why I'm saying she was not just beautiful, she was the best of the apsaras. Their minds are so agitated that it is said that they involuntarily discharge their vital energy. And it is said that they didn't want to, but they were just so agitated. But so as to not waste their vital energy, they collected their vital energy in a pot, kumbha. And it is said through this discharge by Mitra and Varuna, which was placed in that pot, it is said from that pot, from that energy, Vashishta was reborn. That's why Vashishta is also known as Kumbhayoni, born from a kumbha. Now the technology of how that happened is not mentioned, so I cannot throw more light on that. But he was born in this very unusual way. It is said even Agastya Muni was born through the same kumbha. So both Vashishta and Agastya were born. Here the Agastya Muni's episode is not mentioned, but other Puranas mention Vashishta and Agastya Muni both were born. So Vashishta died and became born again because of the curse, and then he had to be born again. Meanwhile, there is a yajna being performed. Maharaj Nimi left his body voluntarily and is just his kinsmen, his followers, his ministers, they're all performing this yajna. They preserved his body, they're performing this yajna. They finally propitiated all the devatas. Their plan was, we will propitiate the devatas and we will ask the devatas to bless in such a way that Maharaj Nimi comes back to this body and becomes alive. So they told the devatas, if you are pleased with the sacrifice, please give us this benediction. Then God said, yeah, for us, not a problem. You can bring the soul of Maharaj Nimi back into this body. Done. can. When Maharaj Nimi heard that, he appeared on the scene. Huh? And he started saying, probably unseen because he didn't have a gross body at that time. Maharaj Nimi said, no, 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 please don't do this. I am no longer interested to enter this gross body. Don't imprison me in a gross material body. I am so happy I am now situated in my original spiritual form. So I am not interested in coming back into this gross body, so abominable. I know the devatas are capable to allow me to re-enter this body and live in the same body, but I no longer hanker for that. This curse is a blessing for me. I am free from this. Let me remain in my spiritual body. And in my spiritual body, I will continue to guide you. Whenever I want, I can manifest myself to become visible to you and interact with you. Otherwise, I will remain in this transcendental form. He was not a ghost. He was a self-realized soul. He had transcended material energy. So he was existing independent of a material body. And then he said something very interesting. Maharaj Nimi says that Yasya yogam na vanchanti yoga bhayakataraha bhajanti charanam bhojam munayo harimedas. He said that Mayavadis generally want freedom from accepting the body. They want to merge into the Supreme Lord. They are not interested in any body. But devotees of the Lord, whose intelligence is always fixed with the key idea how I will serve the Lord. Hari Medhasaha, whose intelligence is always absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Hari. They are not bothered about the body. They are not so concerned about the body. Why? Bhajanti Charanambojam, because they use every opportunity, even inside a body or outside a body or without a body, simply to render loving service to the Lord. His preference was that I want to render transcendental devotional service to the Lord in a spiritual body. But actually, for a devotee, and this is what he is explaining, that a devotee is not so bothered about whether he is living or he is dead. A devotee is not even bothered about taking birth repeatedly within the material world. So Prabhupada explains this, that the devotee's concern is about rendering devotional service. And Maharaj Nimi felt he could render devotional service best without his material body in his spiritual body. But if there is a situation that a devotee can render better service by remaining in a gross body, the devotee is perfectly okay even being in a gross body. He is not bothered about death. He is not fearful of death. Thakur Singh, Janmao bhi more ichha jadi tora, bhakta grihe jani janma ho mora. Kita janma ho yatha vada. O Lord, Thakur prays in this beautiful song. If you want me, even after a life full of pure devotion service, if you want me to again take birth in this material world, no problem. If you want me to do service within this material world, you want to give me another body, no problem. I'm not insisting I have to be free from the cycle of the birth and death. I'm not insisting that I have to go back to God. I don't mind as long as I take birth in the home of your devotees, the home of your servants. I don't mind being born. Even in the home of a devotee, what to speak as a child of theirs, I don't even mind being an insect in the house of a great devotee. So this is the consciousness. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says, this is the mood of the devotees, that I don't want anything. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmanishware bhavtat bhakti rahita. Why? Oh Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I don't want wealth, na dhanam, na janam, followers. Sometimes as devotees, we may not want wealth, but we want followers. Janam. You want lot of people to say, oh, Prabhu, you are great, you are our leader, we are your followers. We want to become big guru, big leaders. Dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, not even a beautiful woman. Kavitam va, Jagadisha. Great learning, so people respect us. Oh, Prabhu, nobody is more learned than you. Jagadish, control over the whole world. Not common. I don't know. What do I want? Mama janmani janmanishware. Bhavtat bhaktir haituki. I want causeless devotion towards you without any material motivation. Janmani janmani. Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Janmani Janmani? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is specifically saying that I am not asking for liberation. I am perfectly okay even if I am taking birth again and again and again, as long as I am rendering pure devotional service. No problem. This is a pure devotee. The impersonalist, they are afraid of taking birth. I want to merge into, I want to just finish this whole thing. Because they cannot appreciate the higher taste of devotional service. But those who are experiencing the higher taste of devotional service, yogis and jnanis cannot. That's why they refuse to take a material body and they want to merge into Brahman and stop this whole cycle. But the devotee, he is experiencing such transcendental pleasure in pure devotional service. And that pleasure is so great that even if he is within this material body, he is immune to all material effects. It is as good as being in the spiritual world for him. Goswami says this. Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasa gira nikhilashu api avasthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. In this world, he who is fully dedicated to harer dasya, servant, service to Hari. What kind of service to Hari? Karmana, manasa, gira. Action, mind, words, which means fully dedicated, not part-time. Huh? Not that 20 minutes I do devotional service, after that I do everything else for myself. Iha yasya hare dasya karmana manasa gira nikhilashu api avasthasu, in all situations of life, Jivan Mukta Sauchate, he is always liberated. Even though he is within a material body. Jivan Mukta. There are those who are Mukta who have given up the body and attained the transcendental realm. And there are Jivan Mukta, those who are liberated even while still in this body. Such a pure devotee is called a Jivan Mukta. A person acting in Krishna consciousness. Because one has a desire exclusively to serve the Lord, one even in this body is situated as good as a liberated person. It is considered as good as being in Vaikuntha Loka. So this point only devotees can appreciate. That's why the Shastra says for the sadhu, jivo va marova. Whether a sadhu lives or he dies, as long as he is executing pure devotional service, it doesn't matter. If he is staying here, he is doing pure devotional service and experiencing transcendental pleasure. And when he gives up his body, tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mami. Go back to the spiritual. He'll become an associate of the Lord and serve him. So service is common, whether here or whether there. And because a pure devotee's consideration is never my comfort, they are never putting into their calculation whether I should be in the body or not be in the body. Death for them is not scary. Why? Because the same cat in the form of death who's holding a mouse in her jaws, the same cat is also holding the kitten in her mouth. Huh? But the cat's grip of the kitten and the cat's grip of the mouse is different. One is of love and one is of crushing death in the form of time. So when a devotee gives of his body, tyaktva deham punarjanmana iti naiti mameti sor. For a devotee, death comes as the doors of liberation. And for a materialistic person, death comes as punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Cycle. So what is the ask of the pure devotee? Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktir ahaitukitva. Prabhupada says it doesn't matter whether we accept a material body or a spiritual body. Our only ambition should be to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very, very nice teaching. This is the crux of pure devotional service. So Nimi explains this point and he says, but in my case, I prefer not to enter the material body because it is the source of all distress. I just want to remain in terms of my service of guiding you. I will do that, but there is no need for me to come back into the material body. Because the material body is by nature the source of all distress. So the Devatas, when they heard he saying like this, they said, okay, we are ready to give you, but you don't want to go back to your body. You live in your spiritual body. You live in your liberated state as an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as per his desire. Because if you are wishing this, it must be his desire. So whether you are manifest to the world or unmanifest, it doesn't matter. You can decide when you want to communicate, when you don't want to communicate, when you want to appear, you appear, when you don't want to appear, you don't appear. You are not a ghost. You are a liberated soul. Tyaktva deham punarjanma. So just like the Lord is not visible to anybody until he appears. Aham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrata. Krishna is not manifest to everyone. He is unseen. Atasya Krishna namani nabhavet garayam indrehi sevan mukehi jivvado swayam evas svaratyadaha. One cannot perceive Krishna and his name by these blunt material senses. When one pleases the Lord through continuous chanting and hearing of the Lord's name, form, qualities and pastimes, one eventually by Krishna's mercy, sevon mukhehi jivvado swayam evas svaratyadaha. One is able to ultimately appreciate and perceive the transcendental dimension or realize the transcendental dimension in the core of his heart by pleasing the Lord. So, net, he said, I don't want to come back to material body, thank you, but no thank you. I will live in my original spiritual body. So, by virtue of that, by virtue of his not accepting the body, it also meant he wouldn't be the king because, of course, bodiless, we don't want a king, bodiless king of the kingdom. So, what was agreed was that we need a king, we need a successor. But Maharaj Nimi doesn't have a son. Another problem. Nimi doesn't have a son, and we cannot leave the kingdom without a ruler because as soon as thieves and rogues see that there is no powerful ruler at the top, what they do? They start creating rakas. They start creating arajakata, chaos, unregulated behavior. Arajaka bhayam nirnam. Manyamana Maharishis. All the Maharishis considering Manyamanaha Arajaka Bhayam, that there may be a lot of Arajakata for people in general. Nrinam. What did they do? Deham Mamanthu Sma Nimehe. They took Nimi's body, they had preserved it, hoping that the king will come back, but the king refused to come to what to do of the body. They churned his body. And from the churning of his body through some very special technology, there was a son born from the body of Nimi. Anyone remembers any other similar pastime like this that we discussed earlier in the Bhagavatam?
Yes, Prabhuji, Prithvi
Maharaj.
Maharaj from
Yeah,
Vena.
very good, very good. From who was his father? From whose thighs he
Vena.
came? Vena.
Vena.
Okay, so similar. So there was some established technology which very few people knew. So it seems like similar. Mathan. Somehow they take out the essence and from that DNA they somehow produce a body. God only knows how it is done. That science is lost. But the Brahmanas were very expert Why they were interested in that body? Because every body has its characteristics. To put it in today's genetic terms, there's a DNA. That DNA is producing a body which has the qualities of a ruler. It has power, it has intelligence. So they want another body from that body, so it has also similar qualities to produce a king who can rule. That's why they don't vote in those days. Because foolish people vote for another foolish man. Anybody who will give them freebies, anybody who will dance, they will elect who? Somebody who has been, dancing, a popular film star, they will elect and make the chief minister. What does he know about ruling? He dances nicely. So we elected him. So this is the problem with people, because people in general are not well versed in dharma, nor are they well versed in what is the qualification of somebody who can lead them. But the leadership under Maharaj Nimi was very clear. We need a very powerful leader. The Kshatriya, Shatatrayate, who can protect the citizens from getting hurt. Shatatrayate, Kshatriya. This is very, very important. We want a leader like Ramachandra. Of course, this pastime happened even before Ramchandra was born. This is his forefathers. We'll come to the connection with Ramchandra shortly. So that's why our scriptures always favors monarchy with a dharmic king is better than so-called democracy. Because that particular child was born from the body of his father in an unusual way. Correct? He wasn't born by the combination of a man and a woman in the normal way. He was born only from the father through a special process. That is why that child became known as Janakaha, Janak Maharaj. What does the word Janak mean? He who is born in an uncommon way, not by the usual process. That's why he became known as Janaka. This Janaka is not the Janaka who is the father of Sita. He is one of the ancestors of the father of Sita. We'll come to that in a while. This is known as Janaka. This king was also known as Vaideha. Why? Because he was born from the body of Maharaj Nimi, who had already left his body, Videha. Videhaja. That is why Vaideha. He was born from somebody who was without a body or who had left his body. That's why his name is Vaideha. And because he was born from churning, he is known as Mithila. Mathanat Mithila. Because of the Mathan. Known as Mithila. And eventually, this Mithila king, who was also known as Mithila, he was known as Janaka, he was known as Vaideha, he was known as Mithila. Eventually, when this king founded a wonderful city, that city became known as Mithila. Mithila Yena Nirmita. This Mithila created the city of Mithila. Correct? This is the same Mithila where Sita Devi lived. This is the same Mithila where the father of Sita. In fact, this king Janaka and his whole descendants, they were all also considered Janaka. Because they're all descendants of that line. But the original Janaka is this particular personality, this king, who is known as Janaka Vaideha and Mithila, who was born from the body of Maharaj Nimi. Then the Bhagavatam continues to mention various descendants which come in this particular line. From Mithila came a son called Udavasu, then there was Nandivardhan, then Suketu, then Devarata. Devarad, Brihadrata, Mahavirya, Sudriti, Drishtaketu, Haryashva, Maru, Pratipaka, Tritaratha, Devamidha, Vishruta, Mahadriti. From Mahadriti came Tritirata, Tritirata, Maharoma, then Swarnaroma, then Rishavaroma. Then from this Rishavaroma came a son known as Siradhvaja. This is where it is interesting. So, Sukadeva Goswami pauses here to mention a bit about Siradhvaja. This Siradhvaja is also famous as Janaka. When this Siradhvaja Janaka was plowing the field with a plow, Shira, he found a girl who became his daughter and who became famous by the name Sita. And this Sita later became the wife of Lord Ramachandra. Because he was using the Sira, the plow, and he found Sita, that is why he became famous as Siradhvaja. He is also Maharaj Janaka. So this is the dynasty from which Sita Devi appeared. This is the Janaka's dynasty, the dynasty from sun god, from Vaivasvat Manu, Ikshvaku, Nimi, Janaka, and then the descendants all the way to Siradhvaja, who's another Janaka, whose daughter is Sita Devi. This Siradhvaja Janaka also had a son whose name was Kushadhvaja, and the son of Kushadhvaja is Dharmadhvaja, who had two sons, Kritadhvaja and Mitadhvaja. Then there is Keshidhvaja, Khandikya. It is said the son of Kritadhvaja was very expert in spiritual knowledge. And the son of Mitadhvaja was very expert in Vedic rituals. There is a brief mention that Khandikya fled in fear of Keshidhvaja. The details of that story is not mentioned. The son of Keshidhvaja was Bhanuman, and Bhanuman's son is Shatadyumna. Shatadyumna, after him was Shuchi, then Sanadvaja, then Urjaketu, Aja, Purujit. Son of Purujit is Arishtanemi, whose son was Shrutayu, whose son is Suparshvaka, then Chitraratha, then Shemadhi, and this person Shemadhi, he became the king of Mithila. Of course, all these rulers are rulers of Mithila. They are all actually the same empire, the same Mithila which was established originally by the original Janaka. Then this Shemadhi had a son whose name was Samaratha, then Satyaratha, Upaguru, Upagupta. This Upagupta was a partial expansion of Surya Deva. Upagupta, Vashwananta, then Yuyudha, Subhashana, Shruta, Jaya, Vijaya, Rita, Shunaka, Ritahavya, Dhriti, Bahulashva, Riti, Mahavasi. These are all kings one after another. Sukadeva Goswami concludes at this point with the name of Mahavasi. He says, my dear King Parikshit, all the kings of the dynasty of Mithila, from the original Janaka all the way up to Mahavasi, all of them were completely in knowledge of their spiritual identity. I mentioned this earlier. Even though this is a long list of names, they are not ordinary people. They were all perfectly self-realized. Even though they were staying at home, they were all liberated souls who were liberated from the dualities of material existence. So it is possible and demonstrated also in ancient times how it is possible what to become a householder, to become the head of state and still be a self-realized soul. This material world will always be Dvaita. Dvaita Bhadra Abhadra Jnana Sabha Manodharma. This material world will always be duality, good, bad, but all this good, bad, what is it? Manodharma. These are all mental concoctions. So the soul has nothing to do with the good and bad of this material. Ei bhala, ei manda. This is good, this is bad. Ei sabha brahma. This is all illusion. It has nothing to do with the real self. That is why when the living entity, conditioned living entity is trying to make spiritual progress, what does Krishna advise? Matra sparshastha kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukshadaha agama apayino anityastam titiksha swabhava. So-called good, bad, honor, disrespect, gain, loss, this will keep on coming. Just tolerate them like winter and summer. Don't be disturbed. Gatasuna gatasun shananu sochanti pandita. A self-realized soul is never disturbed by either the living or those who have died. This whole process of birth, death, gain, all these dualities. One is never disturbed because he knows that the self is avyayatma. It's never affected. Achintyoyam avikaryoyam. It is inconceivable. It is avikarya. It is never affected. It never deteriorates. It is never affected by time or the elements. It's only covered up. That is why those who are advanced in spiritual understanding always remain attached, not get entangled. So this brings us to the end of this particular chapter, the descendants of King Nimi. Thank you so much. I am opening up the floor if there is any or comments. You can take. Hari, very good. No questions. Everyone is happy.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Shalini ji, very good.
A small doubt, Prabhuji. So, Janaka Maharaj is also known as Rajarishi. So, which Janaka is now known as Rajarishi?
This whole parampara. I mean, Rajarishi is a generic term. This context, all the way from Janaka, the first Janaka, the son of Nimi, all the way down to the last name mentioned are all Rajarishis. Because they are all kings and they were rishis. That's why they are mentioned as all self-realized, all the way up to Mahavashi, the last name that is mentioned. And that is what Krishna says, right? That in this way, this knowledge went down through the Rajarishis. Eventually, it was lost. So definitely, it was not lost up to Mahavashi. Maybe it was lost subsequently. And under what circumstances is not mentioned here. But it is not that the Rajarishi refers only to this line of descendants. Any perfect ruler who is performing his royal duties but at the same time is transcendental qualifies to be called a Rajarishi. Rajarishi simply means what? He's a Raja and he's also a Rishi. I mean, to be a Raja is difficult. To be a Rishi is also very difficult. To be both at the same time is extremely difficult. Correct?
Yes.
So, to be renounced is difficult, but to remain renounced when one is in the highest position to enjoy is more difficult. You understand? That is why a Raja Rishi is considered very extraordinary position. That's why Prabhupada would say, if my grahasthas can follow the principles perfectly and preach, then they are as good as sannyasis. No problem. Correct. So in Kali Yuga, to take formal sannyas and live that kind of a life is difficult. But if we can dedicate our lives, our families, our energies to the service of the Lord and the devotees, then can be mini Raja Rishis in that way. Not kings, but at least as accomplished businessmen, professionals in our own spheres. We are also showing exemplary examples of devotional lives. And that will be very inspiring for people in general. Because people want this kind of example. They like example of sadhus, and sadhus have their place in society, a very important place. But more than that, the common people want to see a successful businessman who's living a life of a very good devotee. They want to see a successful senior professional, CEO, senior manager, director. They want to see college professors. They want to see actors. They want to see politicians. They want to see all these various categories of successful people leading spiritual lives. How people can lead satisfied spiritual lives following the principles of religion despite being immensely materially successful and accomplished. That is more inspiring because people always think, oh, this person became a sadhu because he couldn't get anything significant in life. Huh? They think that those who lost in life, they're not capable to face life, they become sadhus. Right? Okay, Mataji, does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Shalini ji, Suresh Prabhu, Anita Mataji, Puja Mataji, Sarvati.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hari Hari, Tarun.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna
Devi
Prabhu.
Mataji, Jnana, Bhaskar.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Harior, Bhaskar, nice to see you. Sridhar Prabhu. Suraj, thank you. Nice to see you all. So please forgive me for Tuesday last week. I got caught up somewhere outside and totally lost track of the class. So my apologies. So this Tuesday we will have class. Means I intend to have a class. So hopefully it should be in Malaysia. It's a holiday. So I don't see a big reason to not have it, but hope and pray we get another opportunity to discuss the glories of the Lord. Okay. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Gaura Bhakti.